You guys are about to get hit with a little bit of deja vu, I think, because our last segment is going to be oddly similar to the one we're about to be talking about right now. Only you might notice a few things are different. Key thing. In the last segment, we covered Ben Shapiro's breakdown of this MAGA civil war that has been unfolding. Now, we're going to watch none other than Brett Cooper's coverage of this very same issue, which means for you guys, you might experience a little bit of deja vu, because she is often called Femme Shapiro, the female Ben Shapiro. Let's take a look at her coverage of this fall-off that the right has been having lately, this big fracturing that's gone down, especially after the election results of a couple days ago. The right is kind of reeling, and I don't think they know how to respond to this. Like, they've simultaneously won too hard to be like, we've got to fight against the left, but now they've lost too hard to argue that the right is growing and getting stronger and not actively losing momentum. The right is now stuck between a rock and a hard place that I genuinely don't know how they could get out of it. I think this is the start of the right's next big downfall. So, let's see Femme Shapiro break this down, shall we? If you end up enjoying this video and you want me to cover more topics, or I guess more videos related to this MAGA Civil War topic, leave a like down below and a comment to let me know you want to see more. And, you know, if we get a lot of support, then I guess I'll know you guys like it. But you can also subscribe if you want to see more from me, and join my Discord if you want to be a part of the community. With that said, let's hop right into this video without any further ado. Damn, she's quiet. Gotta turn up the audio. Should I start my videos with an edit like this? Like a spinning blur edit? Because I just do a fade in. Maybe that's kind of boring. Maybe this kind of like zoomer edit intro would be better. I gotta figure out how I do this in DaVinci Resolve. I'll make this my intro now. Clearly this is what the zoomers want.
So the Republican Jewish Coalition Conference happened this weekend, and watching all of those speeches literally made me feel like we are living in the middle of a sitcom. But it's worse. It shouldn't be funny. It's not funny because these Republicans are using the exact same tactics that the left has been using against us for years. And they believe that they are saving conservatism, and they're worried about what they perceive as radical, dangerous ideas taking over conservatism and our political party. But it really just seems to me like they are deepening the divide on the right as they ignore the obvious shift in ideology and attitudes of their base. Because you can...
So, as you can see, post the big Daily Wire breakup, she's clearly more on the side of Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes. The idea that this conservative MAGA movement that just hardcore backs Israel and, you know, says anything they need to make excuses for it, it's not a winning point anymore. Figures like Brett Cooper, who are entirely out there to be as populist as possible and to farm normies, to farm fans up. Hey, Zan, turn Brett down 10%? Thank you. I love audio recommendations. Like, any advice to make the audio balancing better from you guys in chat, I appreciate. As I was saying, though, Brett is very much a hyper-populist who wants to farm positive support. So for her, she is not going to just defend Trump for the sake of defending Trump. Trump's time is coming to an end. She knows it just as well as Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, and Candace Owens know it. And they are now pivoting into a new brand of anti-establishment Republican conservatism. And, you know, people like Ben Shapiro are going to either be dragged kicking and screaming into that brand of politics, or they're going to be left behind. Remember Ben's sister? This is her now, feeling old yet? This is not Ben's sister, but that would be very funny if she was, like, it would be funny if they were no longer on speaking terms, and, like, Ben's sister now ran her own channel, separate from the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro, after a big falling out publicly. That would have been funny, but no, this is just a woman who happens to look oddly like Ben Shapiro, if he got force feminized.
Scream all you want about Tucker Carlson, but you will never attack him into irrelevance. In fact, by doing so, you might just make people love him more. So, hello from New York, everyone. I am coming to you live from my hotel room, so if you hear taxis and sirens in the background, that is what is happening. This is a very interesting and unique, kind of exciting week to be in New York City, because obviously the mayoral election is happening today, as we speak, because it is Tuesday. So if you have not gone out and voted yet and you live in New York City, please go do so. Also, if you are in Jersey, go.
Ironically, by the way, didn't we just watch Ben Shapiro complain that the anti-Israel side of the right is not calling out Zohran Mamdani enough and is not encouraging people to vote against him enough? Now, of course, this is the face of a woman who does not know how that election is going to end up going. This is the face of a woman who thinks that Zoran Mamdani is not going to win that night. It's just funny to see them before they find out the bad news. You know what I mean? Like seeing a bad person act hopeful about an event that's coming up that's going to go very poorly for them, and just knowing what's waiting for them, the news that's waiting in the future, not too long from this point, it's like a moment captured in time, and I love it.
Vote because you guys might be flipping red. If you elect a Republican governor, which it seems like you are very close to doing, that would be incredible. So pause this video, go vote if you have not done so, then come back and we can keep talking about the insanity that just took place at this Republican Jewish coalition event. But first, I wanted you guys to hear that message.
They did not elect a Republican. As it turns out, they did not.
Unity, because that is important. So go vote, do your civic duty. You can elect all the Republican presidents you want, but if you want change in your community, in your city, you need to go out and vote. All right, moving.
This is true, but for the left. If you want to make change in your community and you want to be able to do something that directly affects the people that live in your life, that you care about, that are around you, that are you as well, voting in smaller elections like the one we had the other day, smaller, quote unquote, is very important. People don't realize how little they're typically affected by, like, federal policy. Like, you really gotta see policy get passed on a state level before you can really notice an effect on your life, more often than not. So much of what the federal government does is opening things up for the states to make future decisions on their own level. And so if you really want to see a difference, well, if you want a difference to be made in the federal government, you write your congressman. You've got a representative. You and maybe a couple 100,000, maybe a couple million at most people have a single representative. You voted them into office if you voted, probably, or unless you didn't vote for them. And if they want to maintain your vote, especially if you voted them into office and you want to maintain and they want to maintain their vote, they want to keep your support and get reelected, keep their spot, they have a vested interest in listening to what you have to say. You can call them, you can write them letters, and assuming you elect the person who wants to keep your vote, I mean, if you tell them, I'm one of your voters and I'm not happy with this issue and you're not going to keep my vote next election if you don't solve this, they're going to guess you're not the only one that feels that way, and they want to get reelected. Vote people in power and hold them accountable. Use the fact you voted for them as a bargaining chip. Write them letters, call them. You can call your representative. You can talk to your congressman over the phone and explain your grievance. So, yeah, do these things, but elect them first. Be able to say over that phone call, I'm one of your voters, and this problem matters to me. And you're not going to get my vote again in the next election if this problem is left unaddressed by you. Like, you can be a little more friendly about it, of course, but, you know, that's the value in casting a vote. Like, don't get me wrong, the vote blue no matter who thing matters because if enough people vote blue, we keep fascists out of office. But it's not just that. Once you've voted for somebody, that's a bargaining chip. That politician might not be perfect, but now they're going to want to be, because if you start sending them letters, if they start receiving angry emails, letters, and phone calls telling them that you have problems, you want them addressed, and if they don't get addressed, they're not keeping your vote. If you didn't vote for them anyway, they don't care whether or not they get or keep your vote. They don't need your vote. They didn't need your vote before to win, so why do they need it now? If you did vote for them before, they're pretty certain they're going to need your vote next time to win again. That is why voting blue, no matter who, matters. Because even if a shitty-ish kind of blue candidate gets into power, if you voted for him, you're one of the people they gotta please. And you can call that motherfucker and let him know you're one of the people they gotta please. I'm not saying this is like a vague thing. I'm saying you can directly contact your congressman. You can directly contact your representatives in federal and state government and tell them, I voted for you, this is what I want. And a lot of leftists don't seem to recognize this fact. They don't seem to see that particular piece of value in voting.
On from that, let's dive into this, because this event that happened last weekend, it very quickly just became the anti-Tucker Carlson conference. I mean, look at these signs that they had printed out that attendees were holding up in front of the stage. They say, Tucker is not MAGA. These were the people walking around the event, standing in front of the speakers, holding up these signs. But it didn't just stop with the sign.
I'm so happy. I'm just so happy. There are conservatives crying right now, and I wish I was there to, actively be licking the tears off of their face. Because I want to know what conservative tears this salty must taste like. I need to bottle some. I bet I could sell it as, I could sell it as, a seasoning for food. Conservative tears.
Basically, every single speaker that got up on stage either directly called out Tucker Carlson or alluded to his impact in the conservative movement. And one of the loudest voices was Mark Levin, who decided that actually he's changed his mind. And when it comes to Tucker Carlson, he does like cancel culture. Let's just take a watch.
Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters, American haters, Churchill haters. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them. It's called the market system. They don't have a lifetime job like a bureaucrat who we're going to protect. And if they're your friend, there's something wrong with you. No Hitler admirer, Holocaust denier, platformer should be anybody's friend, as a matter of fact.
The thing about this is, the part of the right that has all the money and the part of the right that has all the influence are fighting right now. That's what's going on, and that's what's so crazy. One side of the right, obviously the whole of the right has a lot of money, but most of the money is coming from this side of the right, the conservative, traditional Zionist side of the right, where they've got the corporate backers. They support the president. The companies are all bending the knee to Trump and his administration, so they've got corporate backing on top of just wealthy donor backing. And so we unbelievable amounts of money for political causes behind the one side of this issue. And then on the other side, you've got the influencers, primarily the most popular, most populist and up and coming or already huge influencers. Your Brett Coopers, your Nick Fuentes, your fucking Tucker Carlsons. These are the guys with the influence. I'm not saying they don't have money, but they've got the influence. They have as much influence as the wealthy on the other side of the issue have money. And what really made the right so unstoppable the last year was the confluence of money and influence that was the MAGA right for that stint of time. Now they're diverging. There's not a crossover, this powerful crossing of influencers with immense amounts of power and wealthy politicians with tons of money working together and creating something unstoppable. Now they've split. So you've got the influential people who are attacking the wealthy people. So if they can't come together again and start using their influence and wealth to achieve what they were before, if this continues to split, if this wedge continues to widen, they're done. They're done. The right will basically decay into something unrecognizable for a time, and it'll have to build itself up into something new if it ever wants to be able to bring about another era of conservative cultural dominance and political dominance like we're kind of still in, but are currently seeing die off as we speak.
You don't get to wrap your psychotic, mental, unhinged, Nazi, Klan, jihadist bullshit around American patriotism. You don't get to claim you're MAGA and America first when you're lining up with the Marxists and the Islamists and Hamas and the terrorists. That's not America first. That's sick.
Okay, so as a reminder, this event happened, all of these speeches have taken place on the heels of Tucker's interview with Nick Fuentes. So that is what Mark is talking about here. That is what Mark is alluding to when he says, people who platform XYZ people like Nick Fuentes. And I'm so glad, Mark, that you are finally just being open, that you are telling everyone how inconsistent and hypocritical you are, that your values only apply to the left? Because let's just unpack everything we just heard in that 1-minute clip. First of all, you think that the market system is canceling people and deplatforming people who you disagree with. Not even people who you disagree with. You believe in canceling and deplatforming people who platform people that you do not like. That is truly insane. That goes against...
And like I said, the Ben Shapiro and like the traditional MAGA right-wing side of this issue is not saying what the right-wing viewers of this content, the right-wing voters, want to hear. Right-wing voters right now have not moved on the idea of censorship. Like, yeah, like people are getting less in favor of Trump's like political policy, economic and deportations and all that. That's getting less popular. But the idea of like stopping cancel culture or protecting free speech, these like virtue signals that Trump ran on, that most of the right runs on, coming out and saying, oh, by the way, that was all virtue signaling. We actually are in favor of canceling Nazis. What do you mean? Y'all realize you spent the last decade saying that never should anybody be censored or canceled, no matter how horrific their worldview. But now because they're not because they're Nazis, but because they don't like Israel, you're calling for them to be not just censored, but word for word. They use the word canceled. They want to literally engage in cancel culture against those that criticize Israel. After a decade of saying cancel culture, SJWs, all that behavior is bad. Just coming out and saying it. That is not what people want to hear right now. In that same way that Ben Shapiro is saying people like Brett Cooper right now, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, and Candace Owens are siding with the left by criticizing Trump. Like how can you be pro-conservative if you're criticizing Trump? That is not the kind of us versus them rhetoric that's working with conservatives right now. A lot of conservative content viewers are in this mindset that like the Democrats made things super divisive. And to be fair, they feel like the Democrats were constantly lobbying personal attacks at them for them supporting Trump, which just polarized them into liking Trump more because the Democrats were insulting them on a personal level often, like basket of deplorables, that kind of thing. And you know, there's some truth to those insults, but they didn't have the best effect on people. They were polarizing. And so now you've got conservative figures like Ben Shapiro coming out to say, it's all us versus them. Our only goal is to defeat the right. Why are you criticizing Trump? To defeat the left. Why are you criticizing Trump? He's owning the left right now. Why are you criticizing him? Very blatantly outing that they just see politics as a team sport and not that they have any kind of issues they support. Not that they support Trump because Trump stands for something, but that they support Trump because they stand for Trump. And that's just not a winning issue. That's not a winning topic. Especially now, the Trump cult is losing power. It's losing fire.
All of the principles, what I believe to be the principles of conservatism. You think that we should protect lifelong bureaucrats? Did you hear that when he said, you're not a bureaucrat who we are going to protect? That's insane. And also, who are you to be deciding who can be part of MAGA? I mean, that's just so ironic considering the fact that Mark Levin was one of the leaders and one of the loudest voices of the Never Trump movement that started way back in 2015. And now here he is 10 years later trying to gatekeep the movement because he doesn't like a few people and a few very loud voices. Now, I genuinely do not care if you hate Tucker. You have every right to. You are absolutely free to dislike him, to speak out against him, all of that. But your position is majorly weakened and you become a laughingstock, to be honest, if you are willing to compromise all of your stated principles, the principles that you have held for decades at this point, and demand that somebody be canceled because you hate him or because...
No lie detected. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I just listened to a whole paragraph worth of words from Brett Cooper and not a single one was a lie.
You hate somebody that he has put on his platform, and that is exactly what Mark Levin is doing here. I mean, he literally wrote a book on the power and importance of free speech and fighting back against cancel culture. In that book, he said, and I quote, "Free speech is a requisite to all other freedoms. It is also how individuals and societies learn, reform, improve, progress, etc. It is how governments are held to account or adjust to the will of the people." That's what he wrote. That is what Mark Levin wrote in his book. And also, this is what he said on his show just a month ago. This is what he quoted about free speech.
Free speech is crucial to countering the government and those in power.
The fact is, these Republicans have been using issues like free speech. Like, everybody likes free speech. Everybody hates censorship on a surface level. And that's where Republicans like this have thrived, is on the surface level of every issue. And so when you go from saying free speech is good, always, censorship is bad, always, to just outing that you see the issue as more nuanced than that, you can't do that. You've specifically argued trying to make the issue of free speech or censorship any more nuanced than it's always bad is communism, Marxism, evil, censorship, leftist ideology, whatever you want to call it, whatever insult you have for it. So when you come out and you try to say, oh, well, now that we're being negatively affected by this bigotry, obviously, we were the exception. If people are attacking us, then of course they don't get the right to free speech, and of course they should be deplatformed and canceled. But no, you built your entire hype, your entire platform off of virtue signaling that it was never okay. Now you come out and say, well, okay, of course it's sometimes okay. No. You're the ones who said that nuance is woke. Now you're trying to bring nuance to the situation? Sorry, you're woke now. And we're not the ones saying it, it's the right that is. That's what the MAGA Civil War is, the hypocrisy of the right catching up with them, finally. It's well and truly very delayed, but hypocrisy is hypocrisy, and eventually it catches up with even large social political groups of people.
It is crucial to sharing information and making decisions as a people, as a collective, we about our society. I've written about it often, including in On Power. I have an entire chapter on language and speech. Every true patriot should believe in it and defend it. Period.
Okay, so every true patriot should be defending free speech, Mark? Is that what you're saying? I mean, come on, like, this is so incredibly hypocritical. I mean, it would have been far more powerful and far more consistent if you, Mark Levin, had gotten up on stage and said, look, I disagree with everything that Tucker is doing. You could even say, I, Mark Levin, hate Tucker Carlson, but he also has a right to say and do everything he's doing, and I guess that means we're just gonna have to work harder to win and bring people back to our side, and here's how we're gonna do it. You were not solutions-oriented. You were not freedom-oriented. Your response was simply to wag fingers and demand that somebody you don't like be deplatformed. That is what the left does. That is not what we do. And yet Mark Levin and basically every speaker who took the stage spent all of their time during their speeches attacking Tucker, and by proxy his audience and anybody who was questioning America's relationship with Israel or the blanket labels of anti-Semitism. Like, the label that I really care about right now is product of the USA, and thankfully I don't have to worry about that with Good Rant.
Gotta get the bag, gotta get that bag. Gotta get the bag, gotta get that. Oh my god, she spawned multiple back-to-back sponsors? What the fuck? Oh my god, damn. Damn. Remember, they're all grifters. They're all grifters. You know, even when they're not lying blatantly in their videos, they are still grifting. Dude, back-to-back sponsors. Imagine you watch, like, some gaming review YouTuber, and he says, this video is sponsored by World of Tanks, and then does the whole World of Tanks ad read, and then follows it up with, this video is also sponsored by BetterHelp, and then does a full BetterHelp ad read back to back. Like, could you imagine how ripped apart that creator would be in any other circle, but in the political right-wing, specifically the right-wing political sphere, getting the bag is not something anybody sees as shameless when done in this way. It's crazy. I've never seen that before. I've never seen two back-to-back sponsorships on an 18-minute YouTube video. That's wild.
Back to our good friend, Mark Levin. Later in his speech, Mark also made sure to emphasize that it wasn't just about Tucker and the people that he was platforming. It was about all of us who, like Tucker, are in his audience, and anybody who shares these ideas online. Just take a watch.
You think your stupid little podcast, or your stupid little subscription program, or your little TV show, or maybe you have a little radio show, is going to change the...
Okay, I'm not the only one thinking this, right? This guy would voice a really funny character in Smiling Friends. I bet they could write a really good Smiling Friends character to be voiced by this guy. I'm not the only one who thinks that, right? Like, could you not imagine this voice coming from the mouth of like, some new Smiling Friends character?
TV show, or maybe you have a little radio show, is going to change the world like hell it is.
I mean, thankfully for us...
I could definitely see a Smiling Friends character with his voice. I don't know why, but I'm like imagining it in my mind.
Mark just said the quiet part out loud. They're doing all of this. They're freaking out because of how popular and impactful Tucker is. Your little podcast, your little subscription platform. Like, dude, Tucker right now is the #1 podcaster in the world. He is neck and neck with Joe Rogan. This is projection. Frankly, it is embarrassing. You are exposing that you are absolutely petrified of his influence, and therefore your strategy is to minimize his reach, which is laughable, and then attack him.
Oh, by the way, before you panic about that Tucker Carlson neck and neck with Joe Rogan comment, that's not because Tucker Carlson is, like, skyrocketing. It's because Joe Rogan is plummeting. Joe Rogan was obviously, like, for a time, the most listened to voice in America. He's still very big, but, like, it's been a noticeable decline. Like, I think Joe Rogan just reached market saturation. I'm sure he could see a renaissance in the future for his relevance and his presence online and in the landscape, but, like, the amount of people who would have had interest in that podcast that are of the age that is the target demographic of the podcast have already watched it. I'm sure there's rewatchers and there's still consistent listeners that'll keep coming back for even decades in the future, but it's a podcast, so it's just going to slowly bleed viewership as, you know, he puts out episodes that don't have super hyper interesting guests. There's only so many famous guests that you can bring on that, like, big names, and there's only so many really interesting niche people that you can bring on and get to tell cool stories, who have the ability to tell good stories about what they do that's so interesting. So yeah, Rogan's kind of outside of his heyday right now. He's kind of, like, slowly declining, not like a fall off, but like a just, you know, he reached his market saturation, you know, that basically the peak of where he could go. He fully consumed the pond he was in, right? And now he's just kind of slowly maintaining and declining. And he's apparently getting to the point now where he and Tucker Carlson are about to be neck and neck in average listeners.
You are genuinely terrified that the influencers, the podcasters, the commentators who are not backing down, who are not cowering to your very obvious blanket threats of cancellation, are running circles.
That is real, KrasnovCon. For people dealing with ads in the live stream, I've set the ads for, like, moderate. Like, that YouTube gives you an option for how frequently ads play on the stream. I set it to the recommended amount, which was moderate. That's what YouTube set it to by default. And someone just said they got 5 ads. You were able to skip them, right? Like, the first one plays for 5 seconds and you can skip it. There's no way it made you watch 5 fucking ads. If that's the case, I gotta turn that shit down. Like clearly YouTube's recommended amount is way too much if it's not skippable.
Around your numbers. That's the only reason you're calling them little podcasts, little TV shows. And again, listen, that's fine. You have every right to be upset. I get that you're angry. I get that you're worried. You have an uphill battle to fight now, obviously. But you all picked possibly the worst strategy to employ. And not only is it an ineffective strategy and hypocritical, but it is also just gross, because these are the same people who have condemned the far left for their violent rhetoric for years now, especially in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. And then, this weekend, all of these individuals got on stage and said things like this.
So I just want to say, I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we're going as a nation. Yeah. We're killing all the right people and we're cutting your taxes.
I like how even Brett Cooper is like, killing all the right people? What was that Freudian slip? Holy shit.
We're going as a nation. We're killing all the right people and we're...
Uh-huh. So... about me having said that I don't think Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Well, that could be interpreted a certain way. Shit.
Cut your taxes. Trump is my favorite president. We've run out of bombs. We didn't run out of bombs in World War II.
I don't even have words to respond to that right now. So that's Lindsey Graham who just got up on stage. And he said the Republicans are killing the right people. Like, Lindsay, is that a Freudian slip? Like, do you want to end up on the next episode of Candace's show? Because that's basically where you're heading with this, with these types of jokes. Like, this is not what you should be doing. But Lindsay did not just stop there. This is what he said next.
But if you ever run for office as a Republican and you embrace this weird shit, we're gonna beat your brains out.
This is just absurd. Like, weren't we just talking? Weren't we collectively?
Oh, what a good time to be a progressive. Yes. Oh, man. Oh, it feels so good to be winning again, doesn't it? I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. These fucking morons could never have kept the top of the pedestal for long. It's like a game of King of the Hill, but you're playing against, like, a dude with 2 arms tied behind his back, you know? It's like, sure, might get to the top of the hill for a time, but you're gonna knock his ass right back down in about 5 seconds. Holy shit. Good God.
All outraged and losing our minds over how disgusting it was for Gavin Newsom to sit on his podcast and say that he wanted Democrats to get out in the streets and punch Republicans in the mouth. And he argued that it was him, just being, exaggerating and being emotional. And yet we said, no. This is violent rhetoric. This is completely unacceptable. And now Lindsey Graham is getting on stage and saying that if you are a Republican and you're running
Turns out the real enemy within was within the Republican Party all along.
For office and you disagree with his take on Israel, anything like that, he will beat your brains out. I mean, again, this is just so incredibly hypocritical. I mean, it's so hypocritical that it is almost laughable. Like, haven't we all collectively sat on our shows, sat on X, and talked about how dangerous it is and how irresponsible it was for leftists to just call anybody they hate a Nazi? I think that that's something that we all could agree with. Now, apparently, that message didn't make its way to the people who were speaking at this conference, especially not to Representative Andy Fine, because this is what he got on stage to say.
Multiple speakers have talked about the rise of anti-Semitism on the right. But it is not enough to speak in platitudes or generalities about the fight. We must call evil by its name. 5 years ago, if I was talking to my father, who's watching, hi Dad, if I was talking to my father at 8:59 p.m. at night, he would say, Randy, I gotta go. Tucker Carlson's gonna be on. But
You know what's so funny about this to me? How long the Republicans spent on both sides of this issue, now that it's split them, have argued that Trump was right when those Nazis marched at Charlottesville saying Jews will not replace us. How many of them said and defended it, saying, Trump was right to say there were perfectly good people on both sides. Trump was right to say that. When they realized it wasn't a good look, they started denying he ever said it. They stopped defending that he said it, and they started saying he never did. And that's why nowadays you might hear, like, some level of ambiguity around whether or not Trump said good people on both sides. He actually said way more than that. He complimented the far-right Nazi organizers way more than he complimented the left in the full clip. And that's rhetoric like that they all engaged in. This is what that gets you. This is what fine people on both sides, in reference to a Nazi tiki torch march, wanting to use people like that for the hype and make excuses for them and maintain plausible deniability, when you still internally welcome them into your movement, this is what happens. You called the left insane and crazy and unhinged for recognizing these people as Nazis and calling them out as such, and now the call's coming from inside the House. Now the Republican Party has a unashamed open Nazi problem, and the rest of the party can't play plausible deniability. The rest of the party can't say the left is insane and calls everyone Nazis now, because they're friends with a bunch of open Nazis. And they're so open about it, there's no plausible deniability anymore.
No mistake. Today, Tucker Carlson is the most dangerous anti-Semite in America. He has chosen to take on the mantle of leader of a modern-day Hitler Youth, to broadcast and feature those who celebrate the Nazis, those who call for the extermination of Israel, to defend Hamas, to even criticize President Trump for stopping Iran's nuclear ambitions.
So Tucker Carlson, in Randy Fine's mind, is the modern-day leader of Hitler Youth. I mean, can you not see Again, how incredibly irresponsible this is. This is the same kind of rhetoric, exactly the same, that the left has been using on us for years, that we have been fighting against,
Oh, yes, dude. This is so good. This is so good. Okay, I gotta give this background again so everyone knows why it's relevant. All the way back in 2017, give you guys a bit of context. 2014 to 2017 was the Gamergate era. Gamergate was a movement that was claimed to be about ethics in video game journalism. The idea was that the games journalist scene was extremely unmaintained, in the sense that there was a lot of favors being done for people. There were a lot of gaming journalists that lacked any competence at games. They were good writers and they were good journalists, but they weren't good at playing video games, so they were literally like the famous Cuphead example, right? Like, obviously a lot of it is overblown, but there was this perception that gaming journalism was bad. It was just not good. And there were a lot of nonpartisan examples of it being not good. And that ended up spiderwebbing into a adopted, or I guess I should say appropriated by the right movement. It became very focused on the idea that women were ruining video games, that female indie devs could easily get positive reviews and exposure from some horny male video game reviewer by offering up some sex. I'm sure this has happened more than once because we live in reality and there's billions of people on this planet and everything has happened at some point. But there was this claim that it was this massive trend and that, like, feminist women using their sexual appeal were taking over and ruining video games, game journalism, and every game was getting turned into a woke walking simulator, basically. And this talking point was echoed by thousands of massive popular channels. You had your more gaming-focused channels like Rags, you had your more culture-focused channels like Chris Raygun, you had your more politics-focused channels like Sargon of Akkad and Shoeonhead, and the thing you'll notice is all these examples range from modern-day white nationalist to modern-day leftist. The amount of appeal that this movement had, it suckered a lot of progressives into getting on board with it. And by the end of that movement, in 2017, some of its biggest members of the SJW movement, such as Rage After Storm, started to talk about this new idea of the Great Replacement Theory. The idea that brown people were destroying white Western civilization and that the Jews were behind it. And when you had a bunch of right-wing figures like Andy Worski, Rage After Storm, and Sargon of Akkad just dropping the mask and saying the quiet part out loud, that plausible deniability that allowed for all of these figures to unanimously say the left calls everyone Nazis, stopped working. Because a bunch of those people started coming out as open, proud Nazis. She was a leftist. I said ranging from white nationalist today to leftist today. Chris Raygun today is a leftist. I mean, by most approximations. He's like a hardcore Bernie bro. I'm pretty sure he supported Zoran Manbani. Like, you'd probably call him a socialist if you saw where he stands on every issue. That said, though, it's been like 100 internet years since this happened, so most of you guys wouldn't remember it, but it all tied back to a bunch of large right-wing figures deciding they were going to start dropping the mask about this Great Replacement thing and pushing it hard, refusing to drop it. And it led to this schism where, like, the more moderate conservatives, the ones who wanted to at least maintain this mask, fought with the ones that didn't, and it led to a schism that destroyed them. And a couple years later, we had channels like ContraPoints, Vosh, Destiny, me, like, you had fucking Jack Saint, Philosophy Tube, Innuendo Studios, Non-Compete. You had, like, all these big channels blowing up, and it was like the era of the left online. Did it get as big as what the anti-SJW movement was? Sadly, no. Didn't get quite as big. Got close, but not quite as big. This time around, let's find out how big the left can be compared to what the right has achieved in the last, like, 4 years.
Pushing back against for years. It is the same kind of inflammatory rhetoric that killed Charlie Kirk. And here you all are employing the exact same thing. You are so blinded by your ridiculous, insane hatred of Tucker Carlson that you cannot see how irresponsible and hypocritical you are being. I mean, these tweets from Ted Cruz, I'm going to read you next, are a great example of this. So just a month ago, he tweeted this. He said, "They don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. Political violence."
You know a name that most of you guys won't even know anymore? You know who was really big back then, but most of you guys, you'll either remember him fondly or you don't know his name? Michael Brooks. Still, man, rip Michael Brooks. Literally, still to this day, one of the best political voices on all of the internet. He passed away, like, he was on the Majority Report, I believe. So, like, he passed away, like, 5 years ago now. Anyone who remembers Michael Brooks, that he was a legend. He was a legend.
Violence is a left-wing phenomenon. Enough is enough. We need to shut it down. And then in response to Fuentes and Tucker this week, he tweeted this: "Trump's bombing of the Ayatollah's nuclear facilities made the little Nazi mad. Good." So now you're turning around and you're calling somebody that you don't like a Nazi. You're doing this out of blind rage because you're so angry that conservative base's attitudes are rapidly changing, that Nick Fuentes is getting national attention, and so you have turned around and in response, you are compromising your own values in anger, which is such a dangerous precedent to set. And unfortunately for you guys, yes, the attitudes are changing, so again, it makes sense why this group is incredibly frantic. This is an article here. Take a March 2025 Pew poll as an example. While the survey shows strong support for Israel among GOP voters, it also reveals that more and more younger Republicans are souring on the country. 50% of GOP voters under the age of 50 express a negative view of Israel, compared to just 35% in 2022.
That rate is unbelievable, by the way. Like, if that rate continues, it's going to be more than half of under 50 GOP who do not support Israel. It's less so that we're at the current point where the negativity towards the country is enough to flip elections, and it's more that, like, the politicians and pundits are recognizing the trend, and they're either trying to hold fast against it, which is not working, or they're going with it. That being your Nick Fuenteses, your Tucker Carlsons, your Brett Coopers, your Candace Owens. They are embracing the direction that the right is clearly going in, which is one that is opposed to Israel and radicalized against Jewish people.
These numbers line up with a number of recent polls, including an August 2025 University of Maryland Critical Issue Survey, which found that just 24% of Republican voters aged 18 to 34 sympathize more with Israelis than Palestinians. And this is just one of the many surveys on the subject. And so whether you agree with that or disagree with that, whether you love it or hate it, this is just the fact of our current political climate. And guess what? This behavior that we saw on display at this coalition, at this conference, is only going to push more good people away from you and your message because it is so hypocritical, because it is so inflammatory. And I'm obviously upset about what I heard, and I think that what people did on that stage was, dangerous and vile, but this whole thing is also just frankly comical. Like, I mean, a room of 200 people coming together to shit on a podcaster. Like, this is not serious behavior. But again,
and mind you, all these people defended Kanye West when he came out to say he loved Hitler, by the way. None of these people were against Nazis a year ago. They're only against Nazis now because the Nazi sentiment is strongly polarizing Republicans against Israel. And all these traditional, Republicans are all like, oh shit, we gotta fight, of course, we're Israel first, over America first every day. So, we gotta solve this. We gotta make our voters, care more about Israel than America again. And you've got, a lot of American voters who are like, we don't give a shit about, we don't want our money going to Israel anymore. What do you mean we need to keep giving money to Israel? Like, what? What do you mean? There's a lot of voters who just don't buy this anymore. And, God, it's so good. The Christian nationalism, it doesn't work.
Who is surprised when it comes to these characters? Like Randy Fine, if you don't know who he is, he's a representative from Florida. He's the same guy who bragged about not washing his hands after he had a handshake with Netanyahu. He's repeatedly introduced bills to criminalize anti-Semitism, infringing upon free speech. I mean, he obviously, I'm sorry to say, but he obviously cares more about Israel than he does, principles like free speech. So, buddy, my advice to you, Randy Fine, is just move to Israel at this point. Considering you had to go through anger management classes a few years ago, I genuinely think you would probably be happier if you just moved to Israel. And that's not a dig at him. That's just a fact. It's a nudge of encouragement. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to be healthy. I think you would be happier if you...
I love Brett Cooper's toxic positivity brand. That's what this is. This is toxic positivity where she's acting positive, but she's being toxic about it. It's disingenuous. It's concern trolling. But I love it. The toxic positivity branding of Brett Cooper works really well when she's using it against Republicans. It's very funny.
Just moved to Israel. You could be over there singing songs with Mike Huckabee.
Sweet home Yerushalayim, yeah, where God's words ring so true.
That's Mike Huckabee's take on Sweet Home Alabama, but performed in Israel about Israel. Okay, sorry, I just had to include it because I thought that was just so incredibly funny. And again, the entire thing is funny. Like, I'm just looking at this conference, I'm looking at the state of conservatism, I'm like, this is not a serious movement right now. It is so full of
Can't disagree.
division and finger pointing and anger, and people are compromising their values right and left, again, which is such an awful precedent to set. You cannot act out of anger. You should be focused on solutions and strategy and digging your heels in your principles so that you do not get deterred. And I think that this is such an important lesson even outside of politics, because one of the hardest things in life is not compromising when things get hard, is not going against your values when it would be convenient to. And I think the ability to stand strong in your principles even when times are hard is what makes a great person. That is what makes somebody who is, worth following and is worth respecting. And again, it's not just about politics. That could be as you're dealing with a relationship, as you're dealing with work or friendships, whatever it might be. You cannot compromise your principles because it's easier or because you're hurt or because you're angry. That never...
Obviously, she's virtue signaling hardcore here. She's saying what will make her sound good, but obviously, there's no principle disagreement with any of what she has to say here. It's just, she's clearly not sincere. We know Brett Cooper's brand. She's very good at saying things that will make people think she is worth following and trusting.
Results in anything positive. At the end of the day, you have to be able to be honest with yourself. You have to have integrity with yourself, and compromising everything that you have stated to believe over years and years and years, that is the complete opposite of all of that. Like, seriously, guys, my advice would be, if you are so worried about the influence of people like Tucker, you need better PR. You need a better strategy. That is the only thing that is going to help at this point. What is not going to help is threatening cancellation, deplatforming, and turning your back on all of the principles that have made this country great, that make conservatism great. I understand that you're angry. It makes sense. But be better. Be a better leader. Because right now, watching all of those speeches, I feel like I'm watching some episode of Veep or Arrested Development unfold. Because again, it's comical. It is so blatantly hypocritical that it is just comical. We are not a serious movement.
Woo! What a statement. I wonder if I can fit that in the thumbnail somehow tonight. We are not a serious movement. What a statement. Wow. Powerful from Brett Cooper, let me tell ya. That was a good video. Never thought I'd say that after watching a conservative video, but that was actually a pretty good video. Obviously, there are some Nazi undertones, to say the least, but outside of that, I thought it was pretty darn good. That was pretty darn good. Very good critique of the current state of the Republican Party, and just a fantastic watch for me as someone who is preying on their downfall. I hope you guys agree. If you do, and like I said before, you want to let me know you want to see more videos about this topic, then leave a like and a comment down below. Leave some support, let me know. Subscribe if you want to see more. Join the Discord if you want to be a part of the community, as we have watch parties, movie nights, gaming events, call-in streams, all sorts of things there. It's a neat, neat community. I hope to see you around. And if you want to see more from me, y'all know what to do. I'll see you next time.